Human memory is a lot like, well, it's like a bucket with a slow, invisible leak.
Oh, absolutely. A
Out,
completely invisible leak.
right. You go through your day, you have these incredibly rich conversations, you solve complex problems at work, you get this sudden burst of inspiration on your commute, and you pour all this into the bucket.
To the bucket, yeah.
But then, like, a month passes and you look inside and all those brilliant little moments have completely drained out. You're left with just, I don't know, a few drops of what actually happened.
Just a vague sense of being busy.
Exactly. So today's deep dive is about plugging that leak entirely. We are exploring this fascinating YouTube video by Kamaraju Turaga, and it's titled My AI Companion.
It's a really incredible piece of source material.
It really is. And whether you are, tracking the absolute bleeding edge of artificial intelligence or you're just insanely curious about how to make your daily grind more meaningful, we are breaking down a system that captures those forgotten moments.
And, well, it turns them into a highly structured engine for lifelong personal growth.
Yeah, which is huge. Because usually we frame our relationship with devices as adversarial.
Right.
Yeah.
We view them as distractions, like the very things pulling us out of the present moment.
The screen time guilt.
Exactly. But this source material completely inverts that dynamic. It presents technology not as a distraction, but as this active, structural participant in our own self-awareness.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because at first glance, you might think we are just talking about, like, a digital diary.
Right. Which sounds pretty underwhelming.
Yeah, but it is fundamentally different. The best analogy is having a brilliant personal coach who doesn't just, listen to you vent for an hour a week, but actually reads your raw daily inputs.
They read the diary.
Right. And they connect the hidden dots you missed because you were just too close to the situation, and then they help you systematically level up.
Because a diary is passive. It just sits on a desk waiting for you to reread it, which most people rarely do.
I definitely never do.
Right? Nobody does. But what Kamaraju Turaga outlines is an active system. And before we even touch the tech stack, we have to understand the psychological engine driving it.
The human element.
Exactly. The creator insists that the technology is actually secondary to what he calls the human growth framework. It's this very specific 6-step sequence.
Okay, break that down for us.
So the sequence is experience, reflection, learning, meaning, growth, and contribution.
Experience, reflection, learning, meaning, growth, contribution. I mean, it flows logically, but why that specific sequence? What's the functional mechanism there?
Well, it addresses why so many highly capable people feel perpetually stuck. I mean, every human on Earth has experiences. That is step one.
Sure.
But experiences alone do not generate insight. You can experience the exact same frustrating client meeting 50 times in a row.
I've been there.
Right. Experiencing something does not mean you learn from it. It's the second step, reflection, that acts as the catalyst.
So the reflection is what actually changes things.
Exactly. Reflection takes a raw, chaotic experience and extracts the act of learning. And once you identify the learning, you start to perceive the broader meaning behind your actions, which drives the growth.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it makes a lot of sense.
All right.
But hold on, humans have been reflecting for centuries. I mean, Marcus Aurelius was doing this with pen and parchment 2,000 years ago.
That's very true.
We have cheap notebooks. We have, quiet walks in the woods. Why introduce an AI into this deeply human process? Aren't we just outsourcing the heavy lifting of self-awareness to a machine?
That is the crucial tension of this entire concept. It's a great question. We aren't outsourcing the awareness, though. We are structuring it so that it can actually scale.
Scaling self-awareness.
Yeah. Think about it. A physical notebook is fantastic for capturing the emotion of a single moment. But let's say you maintain that notebook every day for 3 years. Can you realistically hold all those thousands of entries in your working memory to identify, like, a subtle, recurring behavioral trigger that only happens on Tuesday mornings when you are underslept?
Oh, not a chance. I can barely remember the context of a note I wrote to myself last Thursday. I look at it and I'm like, what does this even mean?
Exactly. Human memory and manual review have hard cognitive limits. The AI companion isn't generating the self-awareness out of thin air. It is acting as a vast cognitive mirror.
A cognitive mirror. I like that.
It holds your entire history simultaneously, mapping patterns across time and context that are simply too massive for the human brain to process all at once.
Which brings us to the mechanics of how this actually works. Because if this AI is acting as a mirror for our most private thoughts, how does it make sense of all that messy, unstructured human data without turning into, like, a creepy corporate surveillance tool.
Right, the privacy nightmare. Well, the architecture of the system is honestly the most elegant part of the video. Kamaraju emphasizes that everything built here relies on open-source, low-cost tools.
So it's not owned by big tech.
No, this is not a proprietary walled garden owned by a massive tech conglomerate. The foundational environment they use is called Obsidian.
Right, and for our audience, using typical note-taking apps, the ones with folders and subfolders, Obsidian completely changes the paradigm.
It really does.
It doesn't use static files shoved into isolated folders. It captures knowledge as structured markdown nodes.
Yeah, instead of a hierarchical filing cabinet, Obsidian creates a visual graph. Your notes become a constellation.
Here's where it gets really interesting. When you write a note about a management book you just read, and then you link it to a note about a tense conversation you had with a colleague, those nodes physically connect in the database.
You can actually see the line connecting them.
Exactly. You are essentially building a localized neural network of your own thoughts. But how does the AI actually read and synthesize that constellation without sending it to the cloud?
So the system utilizes local large language models. The word local is the operational linchpin here.
Local meaning on your own actual computer.
Yes. In the broader AI landscape, we are so conditioned to use cloud-based giants. You type a prompt, it travels to a massive server farm, a corporation processes it, and sends the output back to your device.
And that model works perfectly fine if you are asking an LLM to generate a recipe for banana bread or, summarize a public PDF.
Sure, for trivial things.
Mm-hmm.
But if the input is your rawest reflections on your career trajectory, your deepest personal insecurities, or private family memories, cloud processing is entirely unacceptable.
Yeah, I would never put that in the cloud.
Exactly. The video highlights that by running the model locally on your own hardware, the AI provides deep intelligence while guaranteeing absolute data privacy.
It basically functions as a highly intelligent, impenetrable vault. And if you think about the psychology of the six-step framework we just discussed, that privacy isn't just a nice feature, it is a functional prerequisite.
Without it, the whole system collapses.
Right. Because if you have even a lingering suspicion that your personal reflections are being scanned by an algorithm to serve you targeted ads, you will naturally censor yourself.
You'd start holding back.
You will write what you think you should write, rather than what is actually happening. You perform for the machine.
And the moment you introduce performative journaling, the experience and reflection stages of the framework are totally corrupted.
Because the data is fake.
The AI would be analyzing a curated persona rather than your actual self. Total privacy is literally the only way to achieve the vulnerability required for genuine growth. The local model ensures that the data never leaves your machine, allowing you to be brutally honest with the system.
Okay, so once we have that honest data in the Obsidian vault, the local AI has to make sense of it. It doesn't just read the text, it uses semantic mapping to understand the relationship between the concepts in your nodes.
It's connecting the meaning behind the words.
Right. It calculates how closely related a frustration you felt today is to a completely different scenario you wrote about 6 months ago.
Which is something you would never piece together yourself.
Exactly. To really grasp how powerful this mechanism is, we need to look at the specific case study the video presents. Let's talk about Rahul.
Yes, Rahul. So the creator introduces us to this hypothetical user named Rahul. He is a recent graduate just stepping out into the professional world.
High stress, lots of changes.
Absolutely. And the very first thing the AI companion does, and the source material is adamant about this step, is establish baseline context. It doesn't treat Rahul as just a generic spreadsheet of text files.
Right. The system actually learns his specific aspirations. It catalogs his current strengths, his admitted weaknesses, and his long-term career goals.
It builds a profile.
And that context is the filter through which the AI views all of his future inputs. It transforms the software from a simple text analyzer into an actual companion.
So let's look at how Rahul interacts with it day to day. He goes through his week pouring raw experiences into his private vault.
Dumping the bucket.
Dumping the bucket, exactly. Maybe he handles a complex client email really well on Monday, but then completely bombs a mock interview on Wednesday. He writes down his frustrations, his small wins, his passing thoughts.
And think about your own day yesterday. If you dumped your calendar events, your Slack messages, and your private venting into a vault, it would just look like noise, pure chaos.
Just a wall of text.
But what's fascinating here is how the local AI intervenes. It scans Rahul's expanding constellation of nodes and begins to extract what the creator calls growth themes.
Yes, growth themes. It isn't just summarizing his week, It is actively synthesizing his data against his stated goals.
And what themes did it find for him?
The video outlines 4 specific growth themes that emerge for Rahul. The first is career readiness. The AI maps his nodes regarding interview prep, his research on industry trends, and his daily habits to track his tangible progress toward employability.
Okay, so the second theme is communication, and this perfectly demonstrates the underlying mechanics.
This is a great example.
So Rahul might write a messy entry about a rough Tuesday meeting where he felt steamrolled by a senior team member.
We've all had that Tuesday meeting.
Right. And then a few weeks later, he logs a note about feeling anxious when presenting a new idea to a group. The AI bridges the semantic gap between those isolated nodes.
It finds the invisible thread.
It identifies a hidden trigger regarding how Rahul handles authority dynamics and surfaces that as a communication pattern he needs to address.
That's brilliant. And the third theme is confidence, which is incredibly vital for someone in Rahul's life stage.
Why is that so important for a recent grad?
Because recent graduates often suffer from a huge negativity bias. They feel like they are constantly failing because everything is new.
Oh, imposter syndrome is so real.
Exactly. The AI counters this by objectively pulling evidence of his success. It flags the difficult email he navigated perfectly or the complex technical problem he solved on Thursday.
It's like a hype man.
Yeah, but it builds self-belief not through empty affirmations, but through a verifiable data trail of repeated small wins.
That is so powerful. The fourth theme the system identifies for him is AI and digital readiness. It looks at his daily workflows and highlights the specific technological skills he needs to develop to stay relevant in his chosen field.
But notice how the AI delivers this information. Because if you hyperanalyze every single daily conversation and setback, you run the risk of becoming paralyzed by self-consciousness.
Oh, for sure. If I knew a machine was judging how I presented an idea, I would probably just freeze up entirely. I would absolutely overthink every word I said.
Most people would.
Mhm.
But the specific design of this AI companion mitigates that risk by acting as an objective observer rather than an inner critic.
It's a crucial distinction.
Human beings naturally attach shame to their setbacks.
Uh-huh.
The AI strips that emotional self-flagellation away. When it analyzes that rough Tuesday meeting, it doesn't say, you were terribly awkward and you failed.
Right, it doesn't shame him. It says, here's a structural pattern in your communication style when dealing with senior staff, and here's how it aligns with your stated goal of improving your executive presence.
It removes the shame from the equation entirely. It takes an emotional failure and reframes it as a sterile, actionable data point within a broader growth theme.
And that objective detachment is what allows Rahul to move safely from the learning phase of the framework into actual, sustained growth.
It fundamentally changes the relationship you have with your own mistakes.
It really does. Now, Rahul's story is highly specific to a recent graduate trying to optimize his career, but the source material makes a crucial point here. This underlying philosophy, paired with the privacy of local LLMs and structured nodes, is intentionally designed to scale.
It's not just for 20-somethings.
No, it adapts to literally any phase of the human experience.
The creator explicitly lists a wide spectrum of use cases. You have students preparing for the future, sure. But you scale up to mid-career professionals navigating complex organizational dynamics.
Managing teams, dealing with burnout.
Exactly. It highlights leaders using the system to become better mentors, tracking how their advice impacts their teams over time.
But the use cases that really stand out to me are the ones at the later stages of life.
Those are profound.
The video talks about seniors using this exact same tech stack to reflect on decades of life experiences, and families utilizing it to preserve generational memories and wisdom.
So what does this all mean? Looking at that list of demographics reveals the true endgame of Kamaraju Taraga's system. This is not just a Silicon Valley productivity hack designed to help you answer emails 10% faster.
Not all.
If you recall the 6-step framework we mapped out at the beginning, experience, reflection, learning, meaning, growth.
Yeah.
The final step was contribution.
Contribution. So the ultimate purpose of all this rigorous reflection, all this semantic mapping and local AI analysis is to eventually share that acquired wisdom with the world.
Exactly.
The senior citizen using this local LLM isn't trying to optimize a resume. They are archiving a lifetime of complex human insights so that it can be contributed to their family or their community in a structured, accessible way.
It is a profound pivot from the dominant narrative surrounding artificial intelligence today. I mean, most conversations about AI center on replacement.
We worry about AI writing our essays, generating our art, and ultimately doing our critical thinking for us.
Right, but this vision is the exact opposite.
It positions the AI as an archivist and a translator for human wisdom. It uses the technology to deepen our humanity rather than bypass it.
Deepen our humanity. That's a great way to put it.
It ensures that a young professional's raw career ambitions can be tracked and nurtured while simultaneously ensuring that a senior citizen's profound life experiences can be preserved and understood by the next generation.
Because every raw experience is processed into learning. Every learning generates broader meaning. And every meaningful insight is ultimately organized to contribute to others.
The technology is merely the scaffolding supporting that deeply human process.
Yes, the scaffolding.
Let's tie all these threads together. We started with the concept of my AI companion, diving into a psychological framework that refuses to let our daily experiences go to waste.
We plugged the leaky bucket.
We plugged the leak. We moved under the hood to see how open source tools like Obsidian transform our isolated thoughts into an interconnected visual network.
We explored the vital mechanics of local large language models. We saw how keeping the processing strictly on your own hardware guarantees the absolute privacy necessary for honest reflection.
Right, preventing the system from devolving into performative journaling. And then we brought it into the real world with Rahul, watching how the AI bridges the semantic gaps between his daily frustrations and his long-term goals.
Surfacing those objective growth themes like communication and confidence, all while entirely bypassing his inner critic.
And finally, we zoomed out to see the lifelong scalability of the concept, a framework that adapts from the anxieties of a recent graduate to the reflective archiving of a senior citizen, all driving toward the ultimate goal of human contribution.
It is a remarkable lens through which to view the future of personal knowledge management.
It really is,
Yeah.
but it also leaves us with a fascinating paradox to consider as we wrap up. We began this deep dive by comparing human memory to a leaky bucket.
Right.
This local private AI companion essentially seals the leak. It maps your past and your present with a level of precision that the human brain alone could never achieve, fostering a profound level of self-awareness.
It creates a permanent, searchable, semantic record of your psychological and emotional evolution over decades.
Which brings us to a final, lingering question for you to ponder on your own. If you establish a completely private AI companion that perfectly maps every one of your daily inputs and reflections, how long before it starts anticipating the behavioral blind spots you didn't even know you had?
Wow.
And what happens to your own sense of agency when your digital companion understands your personal growth trajectory better than you do? Do you still feel like you are the one holding the bucket, or is the bucket now holding you? Something to think about. Until next time.